What's up? This is Fish on a Heater with Tournament Takeaway, where we take a look at battles within a Silverina tournament and just break them down into bits and pieces and study them to work out what we can learn from them and take them into future battles and hopefully build that ranking. Normally, we just take a look at a single battle within these videos because I believe that is better for better for learning, I guess. Just breaking it down into a more bite-sized piece and ripping it apart in a finer way than we can do with a whole set of three. But I had a set of three a couple of days ago, which had quite a few really interesting, fascinating moments kind of littered throughout the whole set. So I decided to take a look at all three of those battles today. This is against Scientist Mark, who is in my Arena Australis lobby and or server. And if you live in Australia or New Zealand, then I am going to chuck a link to the Arena Australis Discord in the description, because it is basically just a hub of Australasian PvP. They've got they've got monthly tournaments going on. They've got a weekly show that they do on YouTube, which you can find when you're in there. There's all sorts of they put together teams for team tournaments around the world, like World Cups that big servers hold and all that. It's a fantastic place for Aussie and New Zealand battlers. But plugs aside, this was our colossal Sorcerer's Cup, which is our server-wide kind of big tournament. And this was round 6? Round 7? Round 6. Let's see how the battles go. The first battle is the least interesting of the lot, I'm going to warn you now. So starting out with the Munchlax lead versus Bronzong. I think the main reason I did this was just that I had seen so many people leading Bronzong lately that I wanted to catch that. Bronzong and Frostlass as well, obviously. Munchlax being a great counter for both. Now, I had built up to a Bulldoze to try and get the bait. Obviously, Mark didn't use the shield there, so the bait didn't work, but that meant that this is a situation that happens a lot. The body slam damage got the Bronzong low enough that I don't need to worry about baiting anymore. I can just go body slams from that point on, and anytime I want to use a body slam from here, Mark has to decide, is he going to use a shield, or is he going to just lose the Bronzong? And he decides to lose it. Okay, out comes Muck. I just, rather than trying to switch out and potentially lock myself in against something bad, I decided to just unleash as much energy as possible and let the Munchlax go down. Obviously, I'm not going to bring the Hypno against the Muck. That would be suicide. Didn't shield that one. Went for the Crunch, because at this stage I wasn't really sure how much damage Crunch would do. I wasn't sure if it would take out the Muck or not. Now, I opt to go for that shield myself, and it turns out to be Acid Spray. Now, I believe this Muck had quite a decent amount of energy, so I was expecting probably like a Gunk Shot, or at least a Sludge Wave, which would have pretty much taken me out there. But it turned out to be Acid Spray, so now I'm like a Dark Pulse is easily going to take me out at that range. But I managed to get to another Crunch before that happens, which is shielded. So I tried to catch the charge. Like at that stage, I can't tell how much energy this Muck has actually got. So I just tried to guess, at that point, and try to catch that move with the Hypno, which, at full health, the Dark Pulse is going to hurt, but it's not going to be lethal. So I figured I could take that, and not knowing what was in the back, maybe it was Frostlass, maybe the Noctowl it would help for, like, being able to get to another crunch in, the clutch end game, might have been a good help. So I'd opted to keep that Skuntank conscious, despite it being such low health. But Mark seems to have been waiting for me to make that switch out. And luckily for me, it ended up turning it into a Hypno versus Toxicroak battle. So it was basically like Mark jumping in front of a bus. That's game right there. The other reason I opted to bring in Hypno there is because with Muck being as low on health as it was, where are we? Confusion would have done a good job there. Even if I had to use my second shield there to shield another Dark Pulse, I could get up a lot of energy to use against whatever was in the back. And if you're looking at that team, Hypno with energy would be a huge benefit to all of those mons apart from the Muck. And obviously we've just gotten rid of the Muck, so maybe Clefable's the only other one that it doesn't hugely matter. But yeah, if you're, if you've already got a Shadow Ball charged up and Frostlass comes in, then that's game. If you've got a couple of Thunder Punches charged up and Noctowl comes in, then you're in a really good position there as well. So yeah, I opted to try and confusion down that Muck, even if I had to wear a Dark Pulse. And just for interest's sake, let's see how much damage confusion does to a Muck. So Hypno versus Muck Alolan. So 8 damage. After 3 confusions, that's 24 damage. So that might have been taken care of in 3 confusions. Yeah, that's a bit of guesswork there. But yeah, 3 might have done it. Anyway, let's get back to battle. So then, of course, Mark insta-switches, and that proves his death for this particular first battle. I don't even need to use that shield, and I've got the Thunder Punch ready to go, which takes out the rest of the Muck. So that's battle 1. I won it fairly comfortably in the end, thanks to that counter switch. And Mark, if you're watching this, let me know what your thoughts were behind the counter switch. Put it in the comments below so everyone can see. Now, I lose the lead this time. And I go for Wigglytuff. It's too late now because Sorcerer's Cup is finished, but I was interested to find that Snarl Muck loses to Wigglytuff, while Poison Jab Muck beats Wigglytuff. So the fact that this Muck had Snarl, I was happy to get that Wigglytuff in. Wigglytuff is was a fantastic safe switch for Sorcerer's Cup, except for when they've got a Bronzong, because most people, when they had Bronzong in their team, brought Bronzong. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that it was Noctowl that was brought in for the switch. The great thing about a Mon like Wigglytuff that relies heavily on fast move damage is that in pretty much all cases, the longer the battle goes on, the more it's tipped in the charm user's favour, or the Razor Leafer's favour. Now, what do we bring out here? If you are a newer player and you haven't been in a situation like this before, where both mons have fainted simultaneously, as soon as you click your next Pokemon, the other person can see it. So you need to wait for them to bring their mon out first, so that you can have the advantage, you can see what they've got, and you can put in the counter. Mark knew that just as well as I did. So we played this game of chicken. We ran that clock down to the last second until we just had to take a wild stab at it. Which of these two mons is the better one to use? I was thinking about what could possibly be in the back. We know, we've seen a Alolan Muck. We don't know what the other mon is. The other mon is X. We know it can't be Noctowl, and we know it can't be Muck. So it's either a Frostlass, a Bronzong, Clefable, or Toxicroak. How much health did Hypno have at the time? It was... not health, how much energy did Hypno have? Because that to me makes a difference in who the better one is to bring out. So 4 confusions it'd use. So each confusion is, what is it, 12 energy? So 48 energy all up. Had 1 Thunder Punch and was 1 confusion away from the Shadow Ball. Here we go. So, Hypno, obviously, if it's got a Shadow Ball charged up, can really hurt the Frostlass and the Bronzong. Obviously, the Hypno's gonna take out the Toxicroak without even needing energy. The Clefable, this was the only time I had ever encountered a Clefable in Sorcerer's Cup. I didn't know who did that matchup better. Well, I guess Skuntank would have the advantage there over Clefable just because of its Poison Jab. Also, the Crunch would really hurt Frostlass and Bronzong. But the Toxicroak would kick Skuntank's ass. So taking all that into account, that's what I was doing. I was basically just looking at the 4 Pokemon that it could possibly be and deciding which of my 2 Mons has the better matchups against those 4 remaining Pokemon. I think, and Mark, correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong, I think Mark was just looking at, well, I've seen Hypno. It's a known quantity to me. I know, you know, that Muck beats Hypno just fine, and it's got some good matchups against everything else. Let's see what happened. Bang, at the same time, we throw out the Muck and the Hypno. Now I do as much as I can, try and switch out to catch a charge move, but it doesn't work, so I try and use a shield. And then I switch out to Skuntank, and then Toxicroak comes out, and it's like, oh no you don't. Skuntank valiantly tries to crunch it. And I do get up some energy. And I had 2 Thunder Punches, and that's the amazing thing to me, actually, is that I had 2 Thunder Punches charged. If Muck didn't have as much energy as it had, I would have not only gotten rid of the shield, but also then had enough energy left over to take out the rest of that Muck, which is real unfortunate. So this is a definite one that I could have, that I can take something from for future battles, which is that Muck has pretty safe matchups against everything that I could bring. Except maybe Munchlax. Munchlax is going to be pretty solid against the Muck. All the other possibilities, Muck is fine against. So I should have predicted that Muck would bring out that Muck just because it's safe. When you're in an unknown situation like that, so many people would default to, and quite rightly I think, to what is the safest option, which was the Muck. So that was Battle 2. Let's go to Battle 3. And there are a couple of moments in this one that really make you think. Once it starts. Here we go. Alright, Wigglytuff versus Toxicroak. Excellent start for me. If, in this situation, if Wigglytuff spends 1 shield, it can farm that Toxicroak down. And Mark knew that. So, brings out the Muck, and I bring out Skuntank. Now, just quickly, considering the 3 Mons I brought, was it better to bring in the Skuntank or to leave Wigglytuff in? Because I know that the Muck has Dark Pulse and Acid Spray. It doesn't have a Sludge Wave, it doesn't have a Gunk Shot, so there's no way I'm losing this. And it's also got Snarl instead of Poison Jab. So I could have beaten it quite comfortably with the Wigglytuff. However, I brought 2 Mons that were both quite weak to Toxicroak in the back. So I needed that Wigglytuff to stay healthy. I believe, if I remember rightly, my idea was to, I formulated this plan thinking that the only thing I desperately don't want to see is a Toxicroak lead. Because I wanted to draw out his Toxicroak. If Mark leads with anything else, say the Muck again, I switch to, say, Lanoon as a sack swap. If you're newer or you don't know what a sack swap is, it's basically when you swap in a Pokemon wanting it to go down so that you've drawn out their Mon that you want to match up against its counter. So I would have loved to see anything other than the Toxicroak, so then I could switch to my Lanoon and then draw out his Toxicroak, and then I could have beaten it with the Wigglytuff. But no, the Toxicroak was out first. So, out comes the Muck, and I've got to, despite Wigglytuff being even better against Muck than it is against Toxicroak, I have to change. So now we don't need to shield here because we know what the moves are. And I go for the bait, which doesn't work. Mark, very eager to just let his Mons go down. But now, as we discussed with the Body Slam in Battle 1, we don't need to worry about baiting this time. We can just bring out the Crunch again. However, I actually, as soon as I did that, I realized I'd made a grave error. Let's go back. Okay, so I'm about to use up all my energy. I've got half a Skuntank, I've got a Wigglytuff, an almost full Wigglytuff, and I've got the Lanoon in the back. I know that that Mark has a Toxicroak, which is at pretty much full health. I don't know what else they've got in the back. Now, I know that Toxicroak can come in and just punch Skuntank to death. I don't have the energy to scare it, or anyone else for that matter. So, like, even if I tried to, like, swap it out to the Wigglytuff and save the energy from Skuntank for when Mark has less shields, it's hard to do that when I've got such low health and I'm starting from 0. Out comes Toxicroak. And I can't even get to a Crunch, let alone a Flamethrower. Crunch wouldn't have done much at all. Maybe it would have done enough so that Wigglytuff could come in and kind of finish it off before much harm is done. But now it's got a bunch of energy. And I have to shield this. Even though it's a bait, like, Sludge Bomb would have, I believe, one-hit KO me. So I can't risk it when I'm already behind. If the Sludge Bomb gets through, then all I've got is a Lanoon to take on a Toxicroak, which is at, 3/4 health or whatever it is, and an unknown Pokemon in the back. So I have to shield this. It's too risky to leave it. And gets to another charge move, and that's the Sludge Bomb. And there's my second mistake. We talked about energy already. We talked about it. I switch out to the to the Lanoon, which sounds fair. We've already discussed that that I need the Wigglytuff to beat the Toxicroak. But what charge moves does Wigglytuff? Not Wigglytuff. What charge moves does Clefable have? This will be on the test later. All I'm doing here, because Mark has 2 shields left, and Lanoon is gonna rely on charge moves here, all I'm doing by switching into Lanoon is just giving Clefable all the energy it wants. Valiantly trying to get 2 Grass Knots off, which of course both go shielded, and then just as soon as I switched Lanoon out, I knew this was going to happen. That Meteor Mash, super effective against Fairy Pokemon, going to take the rest of me out. Like, despite all the other mistakes that I'd made throughout that battle, it would have probably been circumvented if I'd just kept Wigglytuff in against the Clefable. Although, to be fair, by the time... Wigglytuff was on fairly low health anyway, so by the time Clefable took Wigglytuff out, the Clefable probably would still have too much health for Lanoon's Shadow Claws to be doing anything. And of course, like we established, the Clefable had 2 shields to hide behind, so I'm not gonna get out enough Grass Knots, and the Clefable would be getting to a Meteor Mash quick enough anyway that it didn't burn those shields. So ignore what I said about it being circumvented if I hadn't switched out. It was more just making the problem worse. The big one was using that crunch against the muck to take out the rest of it. What could I have done? Let's see if we got the right bit. Oh yeah, no, a bit further on. Okay, so potentially could have used my sack there. So like brought out the Lanoon to Shadow Claw it down. Doesn't matter if it takes hits from Dark Pulse, because it's meant to be my sack swap anyway. Like its purpose on the team is to be a team player and and take one on the head with a Dark Pulse. So I could have maybe built up enough for a crunch. Maybe even a flamethrower if I was feeling game, because at that point I still had 2 shields left. And then bring out the Lanoon, which could then bring out the coax out the Toxicroak. It would be able to farm up a lot of energy, but I'm also applying shield pressure on it, and I'm able to then match it in against the Wigglytuff, which, because the Toxicroak will have already been weakened by Shadow Claws, that Wigglytuff is going to have an easier time. I get to keep shields. That really could have like done a world of wonders for me. So that's it. That's all we have to learn from this set of battles today. If you have any additional thoughts, any other mistakes, or if you disagree with any of the analysis or anything, you just saw something in those battles that I haven't mentioned, comment below. Hit the subscribe button. Share the video around if you if you come across anyone who thinks that PvP is just tapping or is all cheating and that there's no strategy to it, give this video to them. Just show them that there's a lot more to it. And also, you know, I'd love more people to talk to in the comments of the video. Anyway, hopefully you can build that ranking, and I will see you next week.